outside. And all them crazy murderers will never run from inside. You try to keep me down cause you see not joy. All them knows them from, so you call a man a boy. You not I can just see, hoping up your eyes.
The thing that makes Judaism dangerous to everybody, to every race, to every nation, to every idea, is that we smash things that aren't true. We don't believe in the boundaries of nation state. We don't believe in the ideas of these individual gods that protect individual groups of people. These are all artificial constructions, and Judaism really teaches us how to see that. In a sense, our detractors have us right, in that we are a corrosive force. We're breaking down the false gods of all nations and all people because they're not real.
Here we go, folks. It is Monday, December the 16th, 2024. You are listening to today's edition of the Ugly Truth broadcast. Welcome to the program, folks. Hope you're all doing well. Those of you who are of goodwill, we need to add that's a very important thing, folks. We don't wish our enemies well. I saw something, one of the readers of the website, one of the listeners to the program, sent me something the other day that I felt was very profound. And she was quoting Jesus is telling us to love our neighbors as ourselves. And she said, but what we have to keep in mind is that these people who are bent on our destruction are not our neighbors. And I thought that that was particularly brilliant, folks, and particularly important given the day's events. And the day's events, of course, are going to be the subject of today's discussion. And we are joined once again, folks, by the irreplaceable Stas, who's been on the program now. I don't know, it's been 3 or 4 or 5 programs so far. Nothing but rave reviews about him, and I couldn't agree more. He's just got a great worldview, he's just got a good brain, folks. That's really what it boils down to. He's got a good brain when it comes to viewing and understanding political events as they are taking place today. Let's see. Very quickly, folks, we want to wish everybody out there a very happy and safe Christmas season. You know, Christmas, officially speaking, is one day, but the season lasts for quite a while, depending on which branch of Christianity you happen to follow. And Islam, by the way, folks. The Muslims celebrate the birth of Jesus, and they consider it to be just as much a joyful and glorious day as do the Christians. There's really only one group of people, folks. I'll leave this is your homework assignment for this week. There's only one group of people who don't celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. So your homework assignment for this week is to find out which group of people that is. But I'll give you a hint, folks. It ain't them Muslims, as Mike Piper used to say. May he rest in peace. Anyway, today's program, folks, was kind of an impromptu thing. I was planning on flying solo today to talk about some deeply philosophical and religious ideas related to this, what is the topic on this program, really the only topic that we cover on this program and on the website, which of course is this this holy war that is being waged against us by these, not jihadists, folks, but rather jihadists. See how quickly that can be turned around, how easily that can be flipped with just one letter from jihad to jihad. Okay, now everybody knows what jihad is because it's been pounded into our brains millions and millions of times since before 9/11 took place. But they don't know much about jihad, even though this was exactly what we were warned about 2,000 years ago with the person of Jesus Christ. This was going to be the topic of the program, but there have been some extremely important, and by extremely important, folks, what I mean is existentially important things that have popped up here in the last couple of weeks that really demand that we talk about this right here and right now. And that's going to be the subject of today's program. Before I bring up today's guest and before we get to the sound bites that we have assembled for the program today, I want to point the listeners to some very important news stories that have just come out in the last 48 hours or so. Donald Trump did an interview with Time Magazine. He's been named as Time Magazine's Person of the Year, and he did a very important interview with Time Magazine that, for those who really do get into politics using a magnifying glass and who like to examine things down at the granular level or the cellular level or the subatomic level, in trying to figure out the nature of what is going on here. He said some things, folks, that even though they may not be getting the kind of discussion that they should be getting, nevertheless, I believe that they are going to, they're not just going to bear fruit, they're going to explode in our faces here very soon. And the one thing that he said, actually two things in particular that he said, and this was within the interview that he did with Time Magazine. First of all, he reiterated his plans for solving all of the war and the bloodshed in the Middle East. He said he doesn't want to see any more killing. He doesn't want to see anybody die. And he said, when he was asked whether or not he trusts Benjamin Netanyahu, he said, "I don't trust anyone." Now, of course, this was Trump's typical brilliant way of answering a question and weaving and ducking, as we've said before on this program, folks, and understanding the MO of Donald Trump when he knows that he's in an adversarial situation and he's being asked questions in order to trip him up and to get him to say something that can be used by the Jewish lobby and by organized Jewish interests to create political problems for him. Obviously, this interviewer, whoever this was, they were asking questions, hoping that Trump would answer in a certain way so that the Jewish lobby could go to work across the spectrum, folks. It isn't just one group. This is something that people don't seem to understand. They think that because Benjamin Netanyahu is considered a right-wing Jew and that his government is considered a right-wing government, that they wouldn't go across the aisle, so to speak, and employ their left-wing agents here in America to cause Trump problems. Okay, we Gentiles think along the lines that we use our friends and our allies to do the things that we need them to do. Okay. But the Jews as a people, they're very intelligent folks. They're very cunning. They're very calculating. And they will use whatever they have at their disposal. You know, they will, you think back to the days of Bill Clinton, you know, clearly a left-wing politician. And when he found himself embroiled in the imbroglio involving that nice Jewish girl, Monica Lewinsky, and all of the hell that was being dumped on him. I'm not speaking sympathetically about him, folks. I hated his guts then, and I hate his guts now. But nevertheless, it was obvious at the time, and facts have since borne this out, that this was an Israeli operation. It was aimed at putting pressure on Clinton, who was putting pressure on the Israeli government to go forward with this peace deal that today, folks, has resulted in what's known as the Oslo Accords and the Palestinian Authority, okay? So there's this perception out there that because Netanyahu is a right-wing leader, that, of course, he would use his right-wing assets here in the United States, meaning the Christian evangelicals, Christian Zionists, that fat toad, John Hagee, as Mike Piper used to refer to him, that fat toad. Netanyahu would use the left-wingers as well. Anything to put political pressure on an enemy leader in order to get him to abandon what it is that he is planning to do. So these questions that were being asked of Trump by this Time reporter, obviously these were, it was the equivalent of the reporter handing a stick of dynamite with a lit fuse to Donald Trump. So when Trump was asked, do you trust Netanyahu? And he says, I don't trust anyone. We should read into this, folks, because if Donald Trump were truly BFFs, right? BFF, best friend, yeah, best friends forever with Netanyahu, as so many geniuses and experts and know-it-alls within this quote-unquote movement claim, he would say, oh, yeah, of course I trust Benjamin Netanyahu. Of course, why would you even ask me that question? And he didn't do that, folks. He said, I don't trust anyone. Now, one of the things that was contained in this Time magazine article that's very important, folks, very important, is that Trump said there will be no West Bank annexation. Okay. Now, he didn't, come down with his fist on the table as some would have liked. But basically, he was reiterating what his position had been 8 years ago when he started this business of trying to bring some type of workable peace deal to the Middle East. Okay. Now, what I find very, disappointing, disheartening, discouraging, folks, is how many people are reacting to this interview where Trump is saying annexation is not on the table and all of these other things. They're saying, oh, Trump, he's had a change of heart. He's not Netanyahu's camp anymore. He's not going to. Okay, well, folks, there is nothing new whatsoever about Trump's position with regards to the settlements, with regards to annexation, or anything else. If people had just bothered to pay attention 8 years ago when all of this began, and to read between the lines on things and not let themselves get caught up in whatever the emotion of the moment happened to be, coming off of take your pick, Mondo, Weiss, or Electronic Intifada, or any of these other pro-Palestinian outlets, they had just bothered to apply a certain degree of nuance and to look at this thing in a more, as I said, granular or even cellular or subatomic level, okay? Read the other stories. Read the stories about how Trump and Netanyahu weren't getting along. And all of these stories were out there for people to read for themselves, and they didn't, folks. I literally published 1,000 articles at least on the website detailing what was this behind-the-scenes war between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. 1,000 articles if I published one. Well, now, folks, we have Donald Trump coming out in a very loud manner, and he's saying we're going to get this thing done. The hostages are going to be released, and the war in Gaza is going to be over by January 20th. And in the midst of all of this, folks, what we have taking place are all of these drones flying all over New Jersey and New York. And that is going to form the basis of our discussion today with our very special guest, and it is none other than Stas, who has graciously agreed to give us his time again. Stas, are you with us? Earth to Stas.
I am with you. I'm here to discuss the highly paranoid but very pertinent drone issue.
Yeah, I haven't...
very dangerous drone issue.
Yeah, I haven't published a single article on it, Stas, and the reason why is because to me it looked like, well, just more of the same crap, sorry folks, that we have seen over the years, beginning with Sandy Hook and all of these other things, where you get these people that just let their, they just lose their minds over something. And I said, oh, this is just another thing that has been deliberately dumped into the collective consciousness of the quote-unquote alternative media in order to get us talking, chasing our tails like dogs. But then I came across something today that I found extremely disturbing, folks, and you will as well. It was a news story. I believe it was on, I can't remember, NPR or one of those, talking about Joe Rogan, the big podcaster, and how he had said now he's worried about these drones. And the reason that he said he was worried is because he had seen a Twitter video of an individual who is a professional in the business. This guy builds drones for the military, and he gave what he thought might be a reasonable explanation as to why there are all of these drone sightings. And we're going to be playing that audio here in just a moment. But I want to give our good friend Stas a moment to kind of set the stage for, listen, you live over on that side of the country, Stas. What's the mood concerning the drone sightings?
Well, anybody I've talked to is kind of dismissive of it, to tell you the truth. They're talking about it. It has concerned some people. I haven't talked to anybody directly from New Jerusalem, New Jersey. That's, by the way, the nickname for it. I don't know if you heard that.
No, I didn't. That's actually quite.
They actually have that.
Yeah, New Jerusalem. Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder why.
Yep,
why. Why would that be, Stas? What's in New Jersey?
Know.
What's in New Jersey that makes it the New Jerusalem? Sorry,
oh, God.
I digress.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, the dancing Israelis. No.
No.
You are dancing Muslims.
You are exactly right. And let's not forget as
the
well.
Dancing Israelis.
Yeah, that the Mossad cutout on 9/11, which was the Urban Systems Moving Company. It was headquartered right there in Jersey. So it is a hotbed of Israeli espionage, which also is very relevant to today's discussion involving the drones. Stas, should we play the first audio clip?
Absolutely.
Okay, folks, this is going to take, let's see, this is a good, about 8 minutes, but it's extremely important in framing today's discussion. Let me make sure that I've got it pulled up here. Yes, so the fella's name, folks, is John Ferguson, and he is he's the owner of Saxon Aerospace Industries, and they build drones for a military use. And so he's not, it's obviously, folks, he's not soliciting anything. He put together a little video, I guess, with his phone, and he wanted to explain or to offer a theory as to why all of these drone sightings are taking place. It's a very interesting and also a very disturbing and worrying video, folks, but we've got to listen to it, so here's it tight. Here we go.
Hey, everyone. My name is John Ferguson. I'm the CEO of Saxon Aerospace here in Wichita, Kansas. I'm not normally a TikTok kind of a guy. I like watching this stuff every once in a while. But I'm a manufacturer of unmanned aircraft, military-grade unmanned aircraft, as you can see one of my systems here. There's all of these mysterious drones going on off the East Coast, and as a professional, as a subject matter expert, I wanted to give you all my opinion on what I think could be going on with these drones. I don't particularly believe that these have a nefarious intent. I could be wrong, but I want to give you the truth and what I believe. It's my own opinion, and I've not bounced this off of anybody. So, if you think it's bullshit, whatever, that's cool. I don't want to spread misinformation, as we know that there's a lot of that going around. But anyway, back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan had dismantled the nuclear program, and there were, with Russia, there were countless nuclear missiles that were disarmed and disposed of. Well, there were over 80, I believe. There were over 80 nuclear warheads that were in Ukraine that came up missing. Okay. We don't know where they are. Maybe somebody does, but nobody really knows where these are. And I speak with some pretty high-level government officials on this stuff, and it seems as though that is the case. So I spoke to a gentleman a few months ago who was trying to raise an alarm to the highest levels of our government, which they had their ears closed, about this one particular nuclear warhead that he physically put his hands on. He physically touched this warhead that was left over from Ukraine. And he knew that that thing was headed towards the United States. Okay? That is a very serious deal. And everyone knows that the United States government, this administration, is pushing to get into a war with Russia. We all know that. We all feel it. We all see it. Okay? Well, back up a few years. Do y'all remember when those drones were mysteriously flying across the Interstate 70 corridor from Colorado up into Nebraska, down here into Kansas, and out into Missouri? Well, it was believed that those drones were looking for radioactive material because there had been some material that came up missing here in the United States, and they felt like it was high probability that the nuclear or the radioactive material would be taken along the Interstate 70 corridor heading east or west or south. So from what we understand, they were out there trying to find this radioactive material. Now, drones, they have no reason to be in the air at night unless you're doing some type of ISR work, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, looking for bad guys, or looking for a victim, a search and rescue victim, or law enforcement, or some type of military project, right? There's no reason for a drone to be flying at night, really, okay? Because they don't see shit. So, unless you have thermal optics, drones really don't see stuff. You need to do mapping during the day. If you're going to do farming stuff, mostly do it during the day. The only reason why you would ever fly an aircraft, an unmanned aircraft at night, is if you're looking for something, whether it be a person or trying to smell gas. We have methane gas detection systems that can detect gas leaks in pipelines. You really wouldn't use thermal optics for trying to find gas leaks, just simply because the only way you're actually going to find a gas leak with thermal optics is if the gas leak is aggressive enough that it has a difference in temperature. Because thermal imaging, it creates a digital image based off of the temperature variance. So whatever is different in temperature, it creates an image. Usually gas leaks so slow that it goes quickly into ambient before you can even see it. So we have special sensors that can detect gas leaks. We also have special sensors that can detect radioactive material. So with this gentleman that I had spoken with, who was trying to raise the alarm to try to get somebody in the government to say, hey, we need to work together to go try to find this nuclear warhead, none of that ever happened. They knew that warhead was on its way to the United States. That's all that ever came of it. Nothing ever happened. This government did not do anything at all to help this gentleman raise the alarm and raise awareness that there is a very deadly weapon on its way to the United States. It's out there. Nobody knows where it's at now. It left Europe. Now it's gone. So my own guess, is that these drones are not nefarious in intent. If they are, they are, but I doubt it. But if they are drones, the only reason why they would be flying and flying that low is because they're trying to smell something on the ground. That's it. There's no other reason for a drone to be flying in the air other than to piss a bunch of people off at night. That's it. So, my belief is they're trying to smell something on the ground. Gas leaks, radioactive material, whatever. So, and do I think that that they're coming up out of the ocean? No, I don't think so. Drones that are multicopter type drones, not the the fixed wing aircraft that look like regular airplanes, but the multicopters, they only have so much battery life. They have hybrid versions that are gas powered with electric, but those can still only fly for a short period of time. There's no way in hell that any drone is going to go miles off the coast as a multicopter and fly into the interior of the United States and do a bunch of work, turn around and fly back. It's just physics will not allow that to happen. So these drones, I believe, are launched from a location that nobody knows, but I do believe that they're flying low enough that they're just trying to sniff the ground and try to find something. So again, I hate to be a pessimist or a guy that thinks, directly to the negative. However, I know as a professional, I mean, we build professional stuff for the military. I believe that they're actually out there trying to smell something that's very important.
Very scary. Very, very scary. And the guy knows what he's talking about. He's in the business. This might be a little bit aside, but I've noticed, I didn't know Rogan commented on it, but I believe he's an American of Hebraic background, Joe Rogan himself, and so is another popular internet personality. That's the guy David Portnoy from the Crass Barstool Sports. He also posted an article about sniffing out nukes. So if I miss my guess, if you're thinking like me, your brain's going back and forth between now and pre-September 11th.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And we know that the art students undercover. Yep. Guys selling little airplanes in malls, ladies and guys selling fucking hand cream. Sorry. Israeli nationals are all over the place, and they're passionate about their job. I believe in America, people go to college and they try to get a showy job in the security services here, so it's important to them, but it's like, wow, what can I make, of course, we're in the unfortunate situation that Donald J. Trump is going to have to say, yeah, it might be the Iranians after me, because he can't say exactly what's happening.
Yeah. But you know what, Stas, on that note, I do want to, in the unlikely event that you were unaware of it, Trump canceled a trip he was planning to make to his golf course because of this drone situation. Now, of course, he's been very cautious about what he has said about it, other than to say that the government knows more than what it's saying. But it was obviously something that was serious enough in his mind that he canceled a planned trip to his golf course I think it's in Bedford, New Jersey. Now, I want to play another sound bite here, folks. Stas, I'm sorry I did not have this ready for you before the program to send it to you, but you'll know exactly where we're headed with this. This is a guy named Jeff Van Drew. He is on the House Judiciary Committee, on the Transportation Committee, and on the Aviation Subcommittee. And he says, well, I'll tell you what, folks, I'm not going to tell you what he says. I'm just going to go ahead and play it. This was an interview that he did with Fox News recently. And, okay, so let's just give it a listen.
In focus now, Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, member of the House Judiciary Committee on the Hill right now. How do you address this at this point?
Well, here's the real deal, Harris. You know, I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, you know, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drone ships and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
Look, you've given us some pretty dire information just here, and I want to make sure that our viewers are digesting this. Iran has the capability to pull up along our eastern seaboard and launch drones the size of an SUV into the skies of several states, particularly New Jersey, where we know the incoming president has a large home, also in the same county or nearby where some of these drones in New Jersey have been seen.
Okay, folks, that was the interview that, what's his name? Van Drew. Sorry. I hadn't heard of him before, folks. It was very irresponsible of me, but I had not heard of him before. But anyway, now just so that you know, folks, I assume my special guest today, we don't put any stock in this theory that this guy has put out, that Iran is the one launching these drones from any mothership. Now, for the sake of crossing our T's and dotting our I's, the Pentagon has come out and has absolutely refuted this guy's statement about there being a mothership and about this being sent from Iran. So, Stas, let's pick this apart. Let's just assume that this guy, his name, again, folks, I apologize, very unprofessional of me. His name is Jeff Van Drew, and he sits on the House Judiciary Committee, pretty important committee. He sits on the House, Transportation Committee, pretty important, and on the subcommittee dedicated to aviation. And he says that he has it from high sources, responsible sources, well-informed sources, this mothership thing. So let's just assume for the moment, folks, for the sake of argument, that he did get this information. Who are these sources? Is it somebody within JINSA, meaning the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs? Is it an agent from AIPAC? Or is it somebody in the Israeli military? I should, if I had had more time to put together the program, I would have done some investigating and found out how much money AIPAC threw into his election campaign. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, folks, let's say that he's not acting as a willing disinformation agent, and that he really was told by high-level people, okay, that there was a Iranian mothership and was launching these drones towards America. Now, there's an obvious reason for doing something like this, folks. Remember that in the days and weeks prior to 9/11, there were all sorts of warnings by the Israelis of an impending terrorist attack against the United States, and that it would take place along the eastern seaboard. Now, this is a fact, folks. They did. You can look it up. They're very proud of the fact that they warned the United States that an attack was coming. It was going to be something big. And so, they do this. This is how they do it. They will warn of this thing that's coming so that they have, of course, they have covered their tracks. They have their alibi where they say, well, if we were involved in it, we wouldn't have told you. Okay. So in this case, folks, we have to consider several avenues, which we're going to go over here in just a moment. The first of which is that the drones are being done just like Stas was talking about a few minutes ago with these art students. Now, for those of you who aren't, who don't remember, in the months prior to the summer prior to the 9/11 terrorist attacks, there was this phenomenon that was going on all over the country, where you had these Israeli art students, young people of military age, and they were posing as art students and people who were selling artwork, and they were targeting military installations, federal buildings, okay, where you would have the FBI and the other groups. It was actually the DEA that put together the investigation on this. I don't know why it would have been the DEA, but it was. Maybe it's the least corrupt. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, the art students and the theory that was put out there in the aftermath of 9/11 is that the reason why these art students, why this was taking place, a massive intelligence operation featuring, I can't remember the exact number, folks, but you figure 50 states and, art students going to each one of them in multiple cities, you're talking about several thousand people, where they were trying to penetrate military installations, federal buildings where you had intelligence and law enforcement agencies and things like that trying to sell artwork. The theory that was put out was that what they wanted to do was to overwhelm the eyes and the ears of the U.S. intelligence community prior to 9/11, so that these attacks could go off without being detected ahead of time. So, is that what these drones are? Is it the same art student deal where they're overwhelming the law enforcement agencies with all of these drone sightings in order to throw them off the path of something even worse? Stas, your thoughts?
It definitely could be. And again, I hope I don't go too far off topic, but I think I must tell this to the U.S. public.
Okay.
The military and the security forces and the intelligence service of the United States, sometimes very unknown to the American public, and they don't want to, but they sometimes end up tangling behind the scenes with the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
A glaring example of that would be the entire, in my opinion anyway, or what I was told, the entire war in Panama in 1989.
Okay, tell us about that.
So there was Manuel Noriega, and behind him was the famous Mossad assassination and businessman Michael Harari.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very famous around the world. Different people have told me everybody in the world was afraid of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
The head of the assassination teams and also a prominent businessman. So he was behind Noriega, and basically one of the only known photographs of him until he died was in some type of parade or something, standing behind Noriega. So George Bush, of course, we don't like him, the skull and bones, nasty, whatever. But he was forced, for whatever reason, because they were getting out of control. Apparently, some issues with trade and something to do with the drug flow to the country getting so efficient and so successful
mm-hmm.
that they had to go get their strongman puppet and get him. So they sent our forces down there. We attacked them, and there was some stories. The website escapes me with this. English economist talked about some colonels and things. They were assigned to arrest Harari, but he gets out And there was some speculation that actually some of these American soldiers wound up getting assassinated later. So it's not the first time that Harari had to be bailed out by, or got into some trouble. He messed up in Lillehammer, Norway, way back, shooting the wrong guy. So I'm going too far off topic here, but that's what the American military is doing, and I kind of believe those stories that certain American colonels wound up getting killed because they went after him. Of course, he was ahead of them, and they didn't get him, but they did arrest poor Pineapple Head. I think that was Noriega's nickname. So they tangle behind the scenes, and the public doesn't know that. I've heard of soldiers getting into with them. They used to be that crazy website. Mike Piper and I were laughing about it. But it had stories indicating that U.S. soldiers had actually stabbed some IDF guys, got in some fights, and then they were paid back later with like bombing attacks in Iraq and stuff. So they tangle, and nobody knows about it except certain people in the military. It's very hush hush. So, of course, this could be our own guys trying to deal with this situation, and they're running afoul of the Israelis in this. And they've had to send out these drones, and they're trying to do something. My thinking was that would be another scenario that would be favorable to Bibi Netanyahu. Instead of fighting upstream against the popularity of Donald J. Trump among a large portion of the United States, if you could assassinate him with like a dirty bomb or something, or even if they couldn't get him, if you blow up his New Jersey headquarters with a nuclear device or some type one, again putting Trump in a even if he wasn't to get killed, he'd be in a very hard spot to say, I don't want to go a war against Iran, even though they blew up my New Jersey golf course.
Right.
I know that sounds ridiculous.
Right.
Or whatever, his property there. That would be very scary if they take out a chunk of New Jersey with a tactical nuke or worse. I guess, I don't know what you think, that would put Trump in a bind. He would sound like a jerk.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it.
If they blew up his mansion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if he was lucky enough not to get
even
himself.
Stas, let's just put aside for a moment the possibility that they're actually targeting Trump. Maybe it's just another 9/11 type deal, okay, that they, look, Trump has said that the wars end on January the 20th. Okay, we know this for a fact. This is the reason why he's been saying that he's going to have these things solved within 24 hours. That's how, this isn't just hyperbole on his part or his trying to, you know how Trump is. I mean, he's very colorful with his language, and he speaks because he knows. But there's another reason for it. What he's saying is we don't have any time to waste. Okay. This thing is going to blow up into something that we're going to lose control of it if we want to entertain the idea for a moment that we may have any control over it as it is. But what he has said is that the wars are ending on January the 20th. Now, if you're and furthermore, folks, he is also saying we're going to bring peace to the Middle East, and and he knows that the source of all of this murder and mayhem is the Palestinian-Israeli situation, and he has said we are going to have a Palestinian state. He has said that. Now you have Benjamin Netanyahu and his government of religious nutcases. Okay, jihadists. Okay, they are out. This is holy war, as you said on the last program, Stas, and they know what's going to happen when Donald Trump gets into office. Okay. And they know he's furious at what was done to him in having the election stolen, and the fact that, and I don't believe, by the way, folks, I don't believe that Trump's real anger at Netanyahu is the fact that Netanyahu was the first to congratulate Biden. I think that Trump is fully aware that it was Israel and her bioweapons division in her military under the guidance and the direction of Netanyahu that released COVID in the world and set the stage for the theft of the 2020 election. Now, Trump has never said that. He knows that if he says that, they're just going to drag him through the mud as a conspiracy theorist and the worst of all things, an anti-Semite, for alleging that Israel would do something like that. But if you're Benjamin Netanyahu and the clock is ticking, tomorrow, folks, the electors for each of the states meets to cast their votes for president. And on January the 6th, Kamala Harris is supposed to be the presiding judge who certifies those votes. Okay. So if these drones are flying all over the country, not all over the country, but in New Jersey and in New York, okay, and according to this guy who builds these drones for the military, that they are equipped to sniff out radioactive material, and the fact that at least 80 warheads, nuclear warheads, that had been in Ukraine during the time of the Soviet Union have gone missing, and that one in particular where this individual who was trying to, I'd love to get his name, who was trying to warn the U.S. government that he personally had his hand on one of these warheads that was on its way to the United States, folks. All of that together, with this, plus what this guy is saying, this Jeff Van Drew, this member of the House, is that Israel is painting the narrative now. They're putting the idea of the drones and nuclear weapons together in the minds of the American people, okay? They're putting those two ideas together, or else the Israelis know that these drones are sniffing for nukes that the Israelis have brought into this country decades ago, and that they are planning to detonate at some point between now and January the 20th. And quite frankly, folks, I think that there is something seriously, dangerously true about all of this. Stas.
Totally. And you might notice that when these intelligence people pull these things off, they look to accomplish multiple goals. So apparently they've got Mr. Assad out of the way in Syria, so they got that airspace ready. They want to get rid of Donald Trump. He has worked his way into the hearts of the Christians of this country, a lot of them, not all. He's formidable foe, the deal making, and they're on to their next. Let's face it, the granddaddy of them all. They don't want any more Iran. They want Iran out of the picture. So what better way to do it than to make this guy a martyr? And perhaps
absolutely. What better? What better?
Him
right. That this is payback.
Donald Trump.
This is payback for Soleimani. Okay. The man that Trump did not want to kill. Okay. On one of Judge Napolitano's recent programs, he had on Larry Johnson, who was a career CIA. I don't know if he was an officer or an agent. I think he was an analyst. And he said that his sources who were in the agency during the time of Trump's presidency, that they told him that Trump was absolutely dead set against the killing of Soleimani. Trump knew that this was going to destroy any possibility for a chance of a peace deal with Iran. But nevertheless, that this thing took place anyway. And so, as I explained at the time, folks, for people to say, well, look, Trump admitted that he killed Soleimani. What could he do? Okay, what's he supposed to say? I had nothing to do with it. My generals did this without my authorization, without me giving the go-ahead. Then they would be all over him saying, look, this guy doesn't have control. He's supposed to be commander-in-chief, and he doesn't have control over his own military. So you know, we have been treated to hundreds of news stories about how the Iranians are plotting to kill Trump, and that they are out for vengeance over the murder of General Soleimani. So have the Jews, have the Israelis, have they snuck? Well, we already know that question, folks. They brought nukes into this country decades ago. This is one of the things that they have used to keep our elected members of Congress and other people in line. It's not just, the blackmail files of them, engaged in illegal sex with underage children or anything. It's not just that. It's the sum of all fears. It's the nuclear threat that they don't have to launch these missiles from subs. They've already got them here. So how much better to do this if it can be tied to the Russians, as this fellow John Ferguson, I think his name was John Ferguson, where he says, it's obvious, everybody can see it, everybody can feel it, that they're pushing for war with Russia. So, folks, I think the bottom line is that the Jews are going to get the war that they have been planning now for 3,000 years, and it may be here a lot sooner than any of us would like to imagine. Stas, I'm sorry for hogging the microphone for all of that. Go ahead and let's hear what you have.
No, that's excellent. I'd be interested to know if our friends in the super duper extra special truth. I haven't seen too many of the super duper guys start going in that direction, which my brain always goes all over the place. When we were all horrified by Sandy Hook, I believe the veterans today, they're like, "Oh yeah, we got word it was the Mossad hit team."
Right, that was
and they
Fetzer.
Just said,
that was Fetzer. Yeah,
Fetzer.
That was Fetzer. Yeah.
Without any. I don't think he had any information.
Nope.
They just said it. Which I remember talking to people about, do you think the greatest intelligence service in the world would risk a shootout with the Connecticut Police Department? My personal feeling about it is there's possible skullduggery that all they had to do is tweak that kid's medication a little bit.
Sure.
And he's gone.
Oh no,
That's it.
No, there's more to it than that, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. But there was a story that came out. I guess it was about 2 years after that. It was on U.S. No, what's the newspaper that's owned by that one horrible Hebrew? U.S. News and World Report, where it said that Adam Lanza had been paid a visit by 2 agents. They didn't say where they were from, if they were from FBI or CIA, but that the neighbor testified for that story that he had been paid a visit by 2 agents because apparently Lanza had hacked into the Pentagon's computers, and so they wanted more information about him, and they even, according to the neighbor who heard this from the mother, that they offered Lanza a job. Now that's a different story for a different time, but the point is, getting back to this, well, who knows what the super duper experts of the 9/11 truth movement are going to say. I mean, if a nuke goes off in America, they're going to say that it's a hoax and that it never happened.
Yeah. Right. But they brilliantly planted in the minds of the people with the Iranian mothership, and
yes.
that is now happened, and that's the way they do it. They put that in your mind, and they know Trump can't go on TV and tell us the truth. Look, I think it might be the Israelis, because they freak out the entire country.
Sure.
And they'd Article 25 them or whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
Right there.
Yes. Yeah. He'd be the only president to have been impeached 3 times if he comes out with information like that. Go ahead, Stas. Sorry.
This is what infuriates us, because we see all these people that are really smart, and they're listening to what Trump says, and they're like, "Oh my God, he is the slave of Mrs. Adelson." I'd hate to keep repeating that, but it's essential. Mm-hmm. This is where apparently all these people have made that mistake, and also that he has to openly lie all the time. Otherwise, he just wouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
He wouldn't be up there. I mean, even most certainly the probably one of the most eloquent presidents. John F. Kennedy couldn't say shit about that on TV.
Right.
Or he would have been dead before he was dead. So it's very complicated, and I wish people wouldn't do that. And I just even people, who are very super smart seem to be missing on that. I'm seeing, for instance, Colonel McGregor and Scott Ritter, who I love. They seem to be sort of losing their temper with Trump. Is even though these smart guys are like, oh boy, he's gonna kill. I mean, they're jumping the gun.
Yeah, jumping the gun.
Jumping the gun on him, and it's a shame. But I'm sure you probably thought of that the brilliant plan of using as a martyr. Here he is. The Iranians get them with the mothership drone.
Yeah. And
of course, he travels by airplane, so the guy is vulnerable.
Sure.
Everybody's learning from combat in the Ukraine-Russo war, and so are the Israelis. They're on the ground working with the Ukrainians. They're doing the next generation of drone warfare, too.
Yeah.
At an expedited rate. So there actually could be some counter-drone fighting going on. I don't know. Mixed with so many hoaxes and annoying things, like their UFOs or whatever. But that's always the one that people don't look at. And, I'm afraid to say, I think that's the same way with whoever is in charge of defending the country. I don't think they look in that direction.
Yeah.
Or they're not allowed to, or they can't. But we've seen that they did do arrest, going back to the September 11 connection, of, I think, about 200 Israeli nationals on that day.
Yep.
Nobody could do anything about it, or that would be the end of your career. And
Absolutely.
I think in the case of John O'Neill, I think that ended his life.
Yes, exactly.
As he got a job for the Kroll private detective company, and then he wound up dead in the building, which that seems strange.
Mm-hmm.
So like if anybody's any good, the few guys that are any good, they go after you. I think Trump wisely did not go golfing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what proactive thing he can do. I mean, there's still quite a bit of time between now and when he takes power. If anybody's listening from the Israelis or the American intelligence communities, whatever you got cooking, fucking don't do it. Sorry for the bad language.
Well,
you guys happen to listen to this, you guys do not do it. Follow Rogan and Barstool Sports Guy. Try to defend the country. Don't nuke New Jersey or whatever to get it started. It's not worth it because.
But see,
I bet you're
Stas.
Yep.
Okay. To them, it is worth it. To them, I'm writing this piece right now, folks. It's entitled, "The Samson Option is not Israel's threat to incinerate the world, but rather the promise to do so." Everybody thinks that this Samson option that Seymour Hersh wrote about, where Israel uses her nuclear weapons against the entire world, because she's got her back against the wall and she's about to be overrun, and she can't turn the tide of battle any other way other than to murder 8 billion people on the planet. That's not true, folks. It's not a defensive measure. Israel plans to nuke the world anyway. And the reason that she plans to nuke the world is because this is what she is religiously and prophetically commanded to do. Now, we have read some of these prophecies here on the program. I'm just going to read a couple of them again, just so that everybody understands that it's not a question mark, okay? The religious Jews, such as those who are in control of the government right now in Israel, they talk all the time about the prophecies of Isaiah and the prophecies of Obadiah, and Zechariah and all the rest of that. And if you actually bother to go and look what they're talking about, folks, it paints this picture of a future that can only be described as a nuclear holocaust. The one that I have read several times here from the book of Obadiah reads as follows: on Mount Zion there will be deliverance, and the house of Jacob. Now, who's the house of Jacob, folks? The house of Jacob are the Jews. Okay, they trace their lineage to Jacob. Jacob changes his name to Israel. Israel's divided into 12 tribes. One of those tribes is the tribe of Judah, from which the Jews get their name. Okay, on Mount Zion there will be deliverance, and the house of Jacob will reclaim its possession. Then the house of Jacob will be like a blazing fire, and the house of Joseph a burning flame. And the house of Esau, that's the rest of us, folks, the house of Esau will be reduced to mere stubble, for Jacob will set it ablaze and consume it, and no survivor will remain from the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken. It's from the book of Obadiah. Let's see, from the book of, sorry, folks, hold on just a second here. Where is it? I just had it. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, gosh. Yeah. On that day I will make the clans of Judah like a fire pot in a wood pile, like a flaming torch among the sheaves. They will consume all the peoples around them on the right and on the left, while the people of Jerusalem remain secure there. Now, folks, look, like I said on the last program, I don't believe that there was this supreme, enlightened, beneficent deity that whispered into the ears of these Jewish prophets and told them anything. All right, these are the things that the Hebrews, the Israelites, whatever we want to call them, what they wrote. Sorry, folks, that they wrote as their recipe for how they were going to turn the rest of us into slaves and take over the world. Okay, and they're very clear about that, folks. They, from the book of Isaiah that we hear all the time about, one of those prophecies says that, I'm just going to read it to you, folks. The Gentiles and their kings shall come to your light and to the brightness of your ascension. You shall drink their milk and milk from the breasts of their kings. Strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the foreigner shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. As you devour the riches of the Gentiles, they shall boast of your greatness and surrender unto you all their gold and incense, while their children bow down to you, and all those who rejected you fall prostrate at the soles of your feet. Their sons shall build up your walls, and their kings shall minister to you as your gates remain open day and night, so that their wealth may be placed at your feet, and their kings led in humble procession before you. For the nation that will not bow down and serve you shall perish, it shall be utterly destroyed. That's from the book of Isaiah, folks. So, Stas, getting back to what you were saying, where you were saying to them, look, you don't have to do this, don't do it. No. You can't have that discussion with them, okay?
Right.
They plan to do this because they are religiously driven to do this, as Muslims are religiously driven to bow 5 times a day when they pray, and as Catholics are driven to, all the things that we're driven to do. Okay, so there's no reasoning with these people. Okay, they see the world going up in a nuclear holocaust because they believe this is what they have been commanded by their supreme being, Yahweh, to do. Stas.
Absolutely. Again, that's the line of inquiry where that never fails. The law. I was going to ask you a 2-pronged question. Do you think some of these guys like Aaron Monte, Max Blumenthal, maybe even Rogan, they are aware of this, and that's why they've been compelled to try to speak. Of course, those guys make a living as journalists somehow, but
Well, I know this, that there's no way that they, unless they grew up in a completely secular home, where, the only thing that they did was they would, they would have their Seder dinner, on Passover. Religious Jews, even the left-wing types that go to synagogue, these stories, these things, they're read throughout the year. There's a yearly cycle where all of these things are read. Now, I know from having listened to Aaron Mate and Blumenthal and others, they have referenced the religious undertones of what's going on in Gaza and how, greater Israel and all the rest of that stuff. So I find it really hard to imagine that I know more about this than they do. Okay. The only, to flip it around, it would be like expecting that they understand Catholicism or Christianity in general better than I would. So I don't know. This is maybe it's something that they know about, but they just don't want to go there because they don't want to deal with the flack. I mean, I know what it's like to try to operate, in the alternative media where you depend upon people to help you out with costs doing things, and how quickly, just look what happened to Mike, because he wouldn't go along with this Sandy Hook hoax nonsense. He was totally tossed out of his place of employment for 35 years. So I don't know. I just don't know.
the Gentiles are often the one that takes their own down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, Stas, I appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on at such short notice. I'm sure that in the hours and days ahead, there's going to be more about all of this business with these loose nukes. But remember, folks, what we just talked about a moment ago. The fact that it doesn't make sense to you and me, okay, doesn't mean it doesn't make sense to other people. You look at the situation in Gaza and in Lebanon and in Syria now, and you consider the fact that the people of the book, okay, the followers of Torah Judaism, they're not out in the streets in huge numbers protesting this, okay? In fact, the only real protests that have taken place have been because there's not more of it. So, as we have said before, as the point we tried to make on this program and on the website many times, is you can't expect them to think like we do. Okay, the difference between the two is like the difference between the mindset of the alligator versus the mindset of the deer. Okay, the deer can't imagine why the alligator wants to eat him, and the alligator doesn't think about it at all, because his nature is to hunt and kill and devour whatever happens to be in his environment at that moment. But nevertheless, folks, for sure, anybody who stands in the way of this greater Israel project, and by that we mean everything from the Nile to the Euphrates, just as it says in the Bible, as it says in the Old Testament, anybody who stands in the way of that, even the most powerful man in the world, the American president, he simply has to go. So the question that we obviously have to ask ourselves these days, in light of this news involving the drones and nukes that apparently are, no, there's no apparently about it, folks. They're on the loose. They are somewhere, and at least one of them was headed for the United States. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this another Israeli Mossad operation, just like 9/11, aimed at creating, it's trauma-induced mind control in order to get this war with Iran started, that Israel has been planning on, not just for the last couple of decades, folks, but ever since they started this silly celebration known as Purim, where they wipe out the nation, the Persian Empire, and they eat the body parts of their Persian enemies. They've been planning on this for thousands of years. Stas, I'm going to give you the last word before we close out the program.
I will say this, all the trillions and billions they spend on defense in this country, I hope that the guys involved can stop this 9/11 Part 2 thing.
Yep.
Considering how much has been spent on it.
Yeah.
I have my doubts.
I do too. My doubts. It's not just that there's no, that the technology isn't there, the willpower isn't there. You think about what you and I know, Stas, what we have learned, what we've taught ourselves, what many of the people who listen to this program have learned and taught themselves over the years about the danger that Israel poses to us as a nation. These guys in Congress, they have access to, the most sophisticated top secret intelligence that exists, that our government owns, and yet they do not have the bravery, the courage, the patriotism to come out and to tell the American people what they know and what they need to know. And so I don't think that it's a matter of ability or disability. I think it's just a matter of them not being willing to do it. Anyway, Stas, if you would please hang on the line there for just a minute. I'm going to close the program out, but I want to talk to you off the air.
Sure, thanks.
So once again, folks, our sincere thanks to Stas for coming on and participating in this very unsettling discussion, folks. Like I said, I was not paying any attention to the drone thing, but now that this other information has come to light, that these drones maybe they're actually being used by our government to locate a nuclear weapon that has made its way into the United States, and that very likely would be detonated between this very moment, folks, and January the 20th, in order to either get rid of Donald Trump or to force his hand in going to war against Russia and going to war against Iran. This is terrifying stuff, folks. Terrifying stuff. Again, folks, I just want to stress this fact. We didn't get to this point. It wasn't just dropped in our laps. This is the last chapter of a book, a story that began thousands of years ago. And the people who were supposed to be reading this book and warning us of its contents and utilizing the institutions of civilized society in order to prevent this day from ever coming to fulfillment, they didn't do their jobs, folks. They didn't do their jobs. As I've said many times, if I can figure this stuff out, anybody can. It's not that tough. All you have to do, as I said before, go back and read your Bibles. Go back and read the words of Jesus Christ. Okay, he didn't say that these people were in error or that they were, that they had personality disorders. He called them children of their father, the devil. It doesn't get any more clear than that, folks. That's it for today. Until we meet again, folks, pray for a miracle. We really need a USS Liberty miracle because without it, folks, everything from here until the foreseeable future has just been reduced to a question mark.